Dearest Xaveria, yes, you are right, sister. Father, while I love him dearly, is an odd man. First of all, he married my mother, which has always perplexed me. She's a strong woman of God, which I admire, but I believe her to be stubborn to a fault, really. I've even heard he laid the feather quill down to think it over for a moment before he signed their marriage papers. Imagine that. He was hesitant to become the Holy Roman Emperor because it meant marrying my mother. But now he's really done it. He has finally gone mad. He has told me that he's purchased a town in northern Hungary years ago and has a ceramic factory there. My father, Francis, by the grace of God, elected Holy Roman Emperor, forever August, King in Germany and of Jerusalem, Archduke of Austria, Duke of Lorraine, Bar, and Grand Duke of Tuscany, wants to dabble in pottery. So now, as the eldest child, I have been dragged out to the countryside to see the goods my father is so proudly producing. The town, called Halle, is quieter than I had even suspected, and the only bustle is coming from our factory. Today I will pay a visit and look through their collection of styles that they are apparently turning out quickly. Hope to be near you again soon. Sincerely, Marie Anna. Marie Anna headed off for the factory that morning, unimpressed and unamused. An expectant little man with a gravity-defying mustache greeted her at the door and began to show the young Archduchess around. The man was proud of the factory's output and often imagined royal banquets using his pieces as cake holders and turkey platters. In this way he felt that he was closer to royalty than most commoners. He left Marie to explore their collection while he went back to his work to dream of castles and cream puffs. The collection was quickly impressing Marie Anna, and a triangular plate caught Marie's eye. She could make out two figures in the center scene of the plate. The whimsical trees seemed fantastic and otherworldly to the girl as she was moved to wonder. She inched closer and closer to the plate until, much like Narcissus and the pond, she began to melt into the plate. Lights flashed around her, and odd shapes began to consume her. Finally, she fell forward and was tossed onto a patch of grass. The bewildered woman looked up to see the figures approaching her. There was no way this was possible. She must have just bumped her head. And yet, one of the figures had arrived by her, and she could now make out his face. "Don't worry, you won't be so dizzy in a minute," said a thin, tall old man. "What?" she responded as her head continued to pound incessantly. "You've fallen into a tin-glazed earthenware," he told her loudly, as if she didn't speak the same language and did not have the world's worst headache. "Tin-glazed earthenware? What?" she said as she slowly regained her composure. You don't know much about this factory, huh?" She stared at him, blank-faced. "Yeah, I guess just looking at you, I should have known you weren't working here, or an Anabaptist." "Anabaptist?" she asked, intrigued. "The town is full of Anabaptists, or as some maliciously call them, Habens, who fled persecution from Catholic groups in Italy and Germany. They have a pretty strong pottery tradition, and brought our town into contact with the faience tradition," the man explained. "Faience? What is that?" "Why are we in here?" she asked impatiently. The old man, who clearly didn't meet many new people, continued to rattle on as he explained that faience is a style of pottery known for its use of floral and pastoral scenes, and its use of green, yellow, blue, and purple. He explained to Marie that in the beginning Anabaptists strictly painted religious depictions, but as they began to merge with the new cultures, they ended up with what the pair found themselves trapped inside now. "You can really see the Italian influence in this little picture here," the man said as he looked around them at the pastoral scene. "And the French influence in the flowers around the edges?" Marie looked around to humor the man as she grappled with the upsetting severity of her position. "Is there a way out of here?" she asked, no longer hiding her anxiety. "Can't say I know it, or I wouldn't be talking to you, Miss. The man trailed off, waiting for her to fill in the blanks. "Archduchess Marie Anna," she said. "Ah, Francis's daughter, I see. I'm Ignatius. I worked here when the factory first opened. Your father was certainly fascinated by the ceramics we were making. He loved the exoticism of the pieces inspired by China and Japan. Look, that platter on that shelf there. He loved that one. See those flowers? Those colors and variety of plants are part of traditional Chinese painting style for ceramics. People call that chinoiserie style. Your father figured we could sell imitations of aristocratic wares with the Anabaptist multicultural art, and through cheaper materials he could generate serious profit, which was true. But lately I've been noticing more and more common-looking pieces that seem to be designed almost entirely for functionality rather than to be visually appealing and ornate." The strangely knowledgeable man then drew her attention to another ceramic. It was a little dish with a lid that he called a tureen and was apparently for holding soup. It was beautiful, with pink floral embellishments, but it was nothing like the soup dishes her family used. She was accustomed to ornate and colorful painted scenes. This tureen reminded her more of a slightly nicer dish, reserved for servants, which never saw the shine of the dining room. Yeah, that's a good example. I think your father is trying to compete with porcelain manufacturers and the factories in England that are producing more durable earthenware. I understand the strategy, but if you ask me, we should probably stick with what we're known for. So more dishes like this one? The woman asked as she looked around the barren land and the white surrounding their scene. Yep, I think this shift could mark the beginning of the end for us. Who knows if your father will be able to sell these more functional pieces. People love the Anabaptist flair in our faience pottery, and I doubt they'll come back for pieces without it. What happens to us if the factory closes? She asked, suddenly terrified of their vulnerable position. Ignatius smiled and said, Well, I imagined it wouldn't change much. We'll still be in here, walking aimlessly, but at least together with good company. Her heart sank, and Marie Anna spent many weeks mourning her past life and resenting this new desolate home. After a year, she began to spend more time with Ignatius. He was very passionate about geology and taught Marie all he knew about mineralogy. They explored all of the nature around them and spent many nights analyzing the pottery across the room. Marie began to relish life again and was so grateful to Ignatius for teaching her to be a scientist in spite of her sex. The two became incredible friends. Then, one night in 1827, after all the workers had gone home, it began to feel eerily quiet. The pair exchanged looks, and then suddenly their senses were overpowered with lights, just as it had been for Marie almost 38 years before. There they stood in the room they stared at for so long, and began to laugh as they touched the plates they had analyzed so carefully. They found the factory to be empty, and finally noticed an out-of-business sign. Marie saw her reflection in a glass window and gasped as her face showed no signs of aging, and her clothes looked just as they did when they first entered the factory, as the pair took off to Marie Anna's home to see her awaiting family. Unfortunately, they had thought she had died during her voyage to the factory back in 1789, and the surviving siblings which greeted her were shocked to see her. Nevertheless, they embraced her, and she showed them her beautiful rock collection. Marie was reunited with Sister Xaveria, as she had promised would happen in her letter from so long ago. Marie joined her in the abbey and remained close with Ignatius as they continued to collect rocks and even did an excavation together. Marie Anna lived well and enjoyed her scientific endeavors. She died in her bed one evening after finishing her last meal on a triangular plate with a little country scene painted in the center. There were no longer figures in it. She closed her eyes and said, "There are good people with whom I lived happily, and I leave them reluctantly."